All right, what is up, my dudes? Welcome back. Part 3 of my series revolving around eating disorders, disordered eating, and eating disorder recovery. In my part 1, I talked about my eating disorder story, like how it began, how it evolved, how it was exacerbated by bodybuilding. My second part was my story about what I did in the in-between time, where I went vegan, I went raw vegan, and I started discovering things about eating disorder recovery. Today, I'm going to be telling my story about what happened once I entered eating disorder recovery and what that year was like. The reason I'm feeling safe to share this 7-8 years after being out of the gym now is because I'm actually at a very healthy weight. Maintained my weight for the last 6 years without even trying. I've now incorporated weightlifting into my regimen again, and I am on a professional dance team. So this time I'm finding that balance with moving my body and eating a lot of really delicious food and not doing it from a place of wanting to be smaller or wanting to be leaner. I realize how passionate I am about eating disorder recovery, as well as being in the gym and dancing, like finding ways to healthily move my body. This content feels really important for me to share with you, especially if you find yourself yo-yo dieting, binge eating compulsively, or over exercising to try and get your weight down. I want to encourage people to find ways to find neutrality for their bodies and potentially even find love for their bodies. It's really important to be exercising and eating from a place of love and acceptance rather than hatred and disgust. Where we left off last time, I was talking about how I began to find on YouTube the different resources after going raw vegan, eating unlimited calories, and then suddenly stumbling upon people who were going through or went through eating disorder recovery. It was really scary to me to think about doing eating disorder recovery from a place of like having no restrictions whatsoever. I had lived so much of my life, like most of us, where I felt that if I ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, that meant I let myself go. And that was really the biggest thing that was driving me about not being fat, was that I was worried about people's perception of me because I thought that other people thought I was lazy, or other people thought I wasn't working hard, or other people thought I had just given up. And especially being such a big person in the fitness world of my area of Augusta for so many years, and suddenly, even having 40 more pounds than I was usually having on my body was just, it was heartbreaking. It felt like people looked at me from my past and felt like, ooh, she got lazy, or she's not working hard anymore, or she gave in to her demons. I was so worried about other people's perception. So thinking about gaining even more weight was so insanely terrifying. Literally, my biggest fear at the time was being fat, was being obese. I think a lot of people function from that place. It's literally from a place of fear. It's from a place of hatred. It's from a place of misunderstanding. And it's also from a place of like not allowing your body to go through a flow, because everyone's bodies fluctuate, especially women. On a month-to-month basis, our bodies are fluctuating so intensely all the time. Not allowing your body to go through the seasons, to go through the cyclical nature of life, is us disrupting nature. It's us disrupting the conversation that your body is trying to have with you. And we can definitely talk more about that in the future as well. Through that summer, it was 4 months, June to September, I did the raw vegan. And then I realized as it was hitting fall that I really needed to get out of my living situation. I need to get somewhere where I can feel safe. My friend at the time invited me to come live with her. It was like out 30 minutes from anything. She lived on 8 acres of land, and it felt like a long ways from everything, but I also felt very safe with her. And I felt like it could be a really good place for me to go in general, but also on this journey that I felt like I was about to go on. I remember moving out there in November of that year. I still felt myself very resistant to the idea of actually committing to eating disorder recovery. It felt like such a important thing for me to do, but it still felt like the scariest commitment I would ever make to myself. So around this time, I had incorporated whole cooked foods again, and I was just slowly introducing processed things and whatnot. And I remember when I got out to my friend's house when I moved out there, I tried to do the raw thing again because I felt myself gaining that, 10, 15 pounds I had lost back. And I was like, I was scared of what I had felt like I had won from like losing 15 pounds. And I just realized I have to do this. I talked to my housemate and I was really nervous to tell her about the whole concept of eating disorder recovery. I knew this friend from the gym world. I knew she was really into healthy eating. I was worried she would judge me. I was worried she wouldn't understand. So I really went into explaining what this meant to me and what would be happening. She didn't bat an eye at it. She was like, yeah, that sounds really important. I'm here for it. I'm here to support you through it. Having her be understanding and supportive was the hugest piece of the puzzle for me. When it clicked in, I was ready to take the journey. Something that happened right before I began recovery was I checked off the last thing on my 5 things I was scared of, but I wanted to do list, and that was shave my head. So on my birthday, right before I started recovery in January, I brought all my friends over and we cut all of my hair off and buzzed my head. It was so insanely liberating. So I went in to eating disorder recovery, to this year of gaining weight, of my hormones regulating again, head first into all of it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna commit to being ugly. That was the thing I was so afraid of, being fat and ugly. And all of a sudden I'm bald, I'm breaking out, and my body is gaining a significant amount of weight on a weekly basis. What I'm about to talk about next, it's very important for me to say I'm not a medical doctor. I am talking about my own experience. If you have experienced anorexia or bulimia, I do recommend that you consult with your doctor because it's important for your body to recalibrate in a different way than mine. My eating disorder consisted of intense calorie restriction, followed by huge stints of binge eating and back and forth. With anorexia and bulimia, I'm often in small or emaciated bodies and have to go about this in a much slower fashion. For the dozens of different videos I'd seen from doctors, from other people who had experienced eating disorder recovery, it was recommended to me that I eat as much as I wanted, whenever I wanted, and whatever I wanted, and then more. It also recommended that I completely stop exercise. At this time, I was still lifting weights. I was still teaching high cardio classes. I was still engaging in my own personal cardio. I immediately stopped the weightlifting and my personal cardio once I began eating disorder recovery. It took me a few months to finally decide that it was important for me to stop my classes. When I tell you that once I had the green light from myself to just go with eating unlimited calories, I did. I took full advantage of it. It was a bottomless pit. I know that I said that in a few videos back about how when I would binge, it was like I was never full. I began eating tens of thousands of calories a day fairly quickly. Once I started eating this much and not exercising as regularly, my body got very tired. It was almost like my nervous system was relaxing and I began sleeping a lot. I'd go to bed early, I'd wake up, go to work as a personal trainer for a couple hours, I'd come home, I'd take a big nap in the afternoon, go back to work in the evening, come home and go to bed early again. I was probably sleeping at least like 12 hours a day. My roommate was actually a little bit concerned about me because I was sleeping so much, but my body needed to rest for the first time in the decade at that point. There was a period of time at the beginning, I was, again, listening to a lot of these people who had gone through this experience, and a lot of them were discouraging others from having any food restriction, such as veganism, right? Veganism had become a pretty solid part of my life at this point. I think it was about 2.5 or 3 years into being vegan. I went vegan for ethical reasons. Was really like being torn. There was a point of time where I tried to incorporate just like dairy and eggs again to see how that felt. I remember I bought some donut holes. Of course, that has egg. The ones that I got had dairy in it as well. It was weird. Like, my body was really anxious. I remember when I was buying these, like, I felt just this like lump in my throat. My heart was like racing and I felt kind of shaky about it. Ended up eating like 3 or 4 of these donut holes. Just remember I was eating them and yeah, they tasted good. But like when I was swallowing them, my throat was hurting. My body just did not feel right. I realized that food that had these ingredients in them no longer felt like food to me. That was my personal experience. Made a decision. I am going to do everything that I can to go through this recovery and eat anything that I want, even if that means I have to make it from scratch. Unfortunately, this was a period of time where vegan products were getting really popular. So all of a sudden there were things like Beyond Meat available, vegan mac and cheeses, there were egg substitutes that were coming out. So it was really quite easy for me to find alternatives. I'm very fortunate and very privileged that I had the means at the time to be buying large quantities of food and also these like specialty items that are a little bit more expensive. During the course of this year, I watched eating disorder recovery videos every single day. A lot of them were in thin or normal bodies. They was like, tell me how, right? Like I still had this mindset like, oh, I need to be in a small body. How did they go through what I'm going through and come out on the other side with a small body? So this is where I wanted to talk about yo-yo dieting and how eating disorder recovery is different and how it heals it. Again, with yo-yo dieting, you're here, this is your weight, you want to lose weight, so you lose some weight. And then all of a sudden, once you get to a certain point after restricting or increasing your exercise exponentially, you get tired, you get hurt, you get hungry, and all of a sudden you gain weight and you gain a little more weight, right? And then you're at this point. You want to try it again. You want to diet. You want to lose some weight. So you go down, you hit your point, and then you go up and you go a little higher, okay? So it's this like staircase thing where what happens is you actually keep gaining more weight and it keeps being harder to get down to this point where you started. Very frustrating because even if it's a few pounds that you're getting back up to, you're consistently going up this staircase. And the thing about yo-yoing is that staircase is never going to end. Keep trying something new, you keep going up. Trying something new, going up. And the reason why is because your body is using its survival tactics to keep you from losing weight, okay? So if we think about migration throughout human history, right? There would be times where humans, our ancestors, would have to go from one point to another point, whether it had to do with natural disasters or temperature changes or other tribes coming in or predators coming in. There were different times throughout history where individuals had to move from one place to another, maybe even a time or two a year. And during that time, they would load up on as much food as they could before they left. They would travel, they would move, they would exercise, they would be moving their bodies to get to place B. And once they got there, once they found a place that was safe, that was ample with food, they would feast again. Their bodies would automatically be like, oh my God, well, there will probably be a famine again. So we need to make sure we hold on to as much food as we possibly can, as much fat as we can, as much muscle as we can. We need to hold on to this because there likely will be a famine again. So what's happening with yo-yoing is that it's literally a survival tactic. It's your body saying, oh, there's a famine, there's a famine. Oh, well, now there's food. We better make sure we hold on to a little bit more for the next famine. Oh, there's a famine again. Oh, you get it. It's a biological mechanism that is being activated when you yo-yo diet. All that being said, in the eating disorder recovery, they say, okay, this is what you've been doing, right? Now this is what you're doing right now. You're going up, 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 up. You're gonna go up probably higher than you ever have. But all of a sudden, you're going to go here, all right? All of a sudden, you're going to plateau. Here's the thing. This might be the set weight that your body wants to be at. This might be where your body wants to be for the rest of your life. I had to make a decision as my weight was going. Can I be okay with my top weight, whatever it is. I had to make a decision that if this is my set weight for the rest of my life, I would rather be at this weight and find ways to accept my body than to be controlled by food for the rest of my life, to be controlled by exercise, and to be controlled by what society tells me I need to look like. They also say once you hit this point, you will either stay here or you'll go down and then find your set weight. And that's where it'll stay, little tiny fluctuations. I decided once I hit my top weight that it was very important for me to follow influencers, vlogs, people online, especially women who were in fat bodies, who were in bodies that look like mine, who were in larger bodies than mine. These women were fashionistas, they were power lifters, they were out there living their fucking lives, wearing what the fuck they wanted to, loving the fact that they were in fat bodies, enjoying their life anyway. We follow celebrities, or we follow models, or we follow fitness people. It causes us to look at the ideal physique and think that there's nothing else that exists, or that anything else that exists is wrong. Remember, there were a lot of times when I was really doubting things about myself, or really worried about different spaces I was going to be in. My body was very different than what it had been, and it was very different from the people around me. Even working at a gym on a daily basis was hard. I would think about Lady Beast Juju, or I'd think about Jasmine J, these badass women who were existing and taking up space. I would think about what would she do? And oh my God, that got me through. That year, I also did a lot of things I was really afraid of, but wanted to do. And one of them was when I went to the Arnold Sports Festival, which I had been to for powerlifting in the previous year. I went for the art competition, and I knew I had to go, but I was so scared being there as a now plus size bald woman, like completely different woman. Also had never painted live before, and I was back into making art again, and I knew I needed to be there, and I did it. And guess what? I sold the painting to Arnold Schwarzenegger. So what's up? Nobody else fucking did that. Also did a photo shoot. Here are a couple of the photos from my photo shoot when I was mid-eating disorder recovery. I was definitely covering up, wearing a lot of layers. Not to say that I looked bad or wrong, I just look different, and I'm glad that I have these to look back at to see how fucking brave I was to actually make the decision to heal. Eating disorder recovery has remained the best thing I've ever done for myself and my body. Okay, this has been a super long video. There were a lot of pieces that I wanted to share in there outside of just my own story. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. In part 4, I'm gonna be talking about the end of my recovery and what happened once I realized that I had made it through. I love you all, and I hope to see you next time.